Hi, everyone. It's Martha Novak. Just saying a little prayer before we start. It's good to be with you all. I've had 2 weeks off, and today is Easter Sunday. We have people listening to these shows all the time, so I don't know when you're going to hear it. But if you're live and in person today with me, certainly happy Easter. I just think there's not enough celebration in the world. So no matter what denomination we are, I think all holidays and every day, every hour of every day are worth celebrating. That's just where I'm coming from. Guys, I'm very glad to be with you. Again, we're talking about, and I hope we'll finish our series today, we're talking about emotional intelligence. It's an extremely important part of a happy life, isn't it? And there are a whole bunch of components to it. One of the things I want you all to know is while Daniel Goleman is most famous for his seminal book in 1995, the truth is this was talked about back in 1964. In fact, with highly emotionally intelligent people, it's been talked about even before that. But there was a paper that was written in 1964 by Michael Beldock, and in 1966 it was talked about by a man named B. Lunar. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. And then we saw it pop up again in 1995 with Daniel Goleman. Well, Dahlia, good morning and happy Easter to you, my darling. Oh, what a wonderful name you have, Dahlia. I love that. It's one of my favorite flowers up here. It's spelled a little differently, I know, but we have dahlias up here in the mountains where I live, and there's a man that grows them, and I swear they're that big. They're bigger than my head, which is just amazing because I got a lot of hair. Anyway, it's very nice that you're with us this morning, and I see all our friends popping in. I'm so glad. Thank you so much for everyone being with us today and talking about this important thing. I am live and in person, so if you want to talk to me in person, you're certainly welcome to call in. Otherwise, I'll just launch in with everything. The call-in number is 347-850-1647. Keep in mind that's the number to get on the air, okay? And certainly you're at the right place if you don't want to be on the air. Okay. Let's do a little prayer. Get us all on the same page. Get me on the same page with you for sure. And we'll start. Okay. Dear God, thank you so much for all of this. You who are all we are and all everything is in the world. We open ourselves now to learn about our emotional intelligence, knowing this is nothing wrong with us. It is just the natural evolution of the wise spiritual being in physical form, which is you and all of us. So we're opening to be our best selves, our highest selves, our selves that are more in line with you. Hello, Denise. Happy Easter to you too, my dear heart. And we're opening ourselves, dear God, and our hearts and minds to the next step that we need to make in our deepening, in our wisdom, and in our emotional intelligence. And by the way, in our lovingness. We thank you so much for all of this. We now say that we know nothing. What a relief. For it is the you and all of us that know everything. And we open to that part of us, dear God, that quiet, still voice within us that is going to give us the information that we need personally for us. Thank you so much for all of this and for these dear, sweet, precious people on this Easter day. We thank you and say this in all gratitude. In your name, in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of each and every person listening. And so it is. Amen. So, just to catch us up a little bit, emotional intelligence is the level of your ability to understand yourself first, then others, and what motivates all of you as human beings, along with learning how to cooperate with yourself and others, by the way. One of the things that I find in so many, oh, thank you so much, Denise. What a sweet thing. And Becky, well, hello, Becky. Nice to see you, darling. One of the things that I find that gets left out sometimes when we're talking about emotional intelligence is that it starts with you. You know, if you are always talking about how to read others and what they are doing, we're a bit manipulative, because this is about us and being the best we can be and offering that part of ourselves in service to others. This is not about manipulating others and reading them. But you see, if you came from any kind of household that was scary, and a lot of people did, you know, a lot of us did. There's, you know, if hello, Vicky. Yes, happy Easter to all. Oh, I'm so glad you're with us, darling. And now that I have talked to you, you are a precious soul. I am just thrilled that you're with us. When we have come from a difficult home of whatever kind of difficulty, often we have our radar up so that we don't get in trouble, you see. We're busy reading other people. We can see the back of our mothers when we walk in a room and it's stiff and we're going to get it. So we know to look out, you see. Oh no, I've taken the last 2 weeks off because I was traveling. So I am here now, but here we are. And I don't miss holidays. Why would I miss holidays? I mean, you know, it's rare that I do. So going back to what I'm saying, we have our antenna up for what other people are doing to keep ourselves safe as kids. But that isn't the dynamic way. That's a bit deserting yourself, really, energetically, when you're an adult. It isn't about what other people are doing. It's about what you're doing. Pardon me. We are having lots of pollen up here. It is spring. Happy spring. Happy Easter. And it drains down my throat and I get choked. So if I do that, forgive me. You're just going to have to wait till I finish coffee. I'm so sorry. Or not. So what happens is we grow up with a pattern that we must remove, and that is of watching other people for how they react to us, and possibly even expecting they're going to react negatively, because that's sometimes part of this too. You're always watching for the negative reaction, and then when it comes, not because you're a bad person or you've done anything wrong, but because you're expecting it. Don't you see how that works? If you're expecting it, ultimately it comes, right? You may actually be playing a psychological trick to expect it, but never allow it to come. Okay? But you're always waiting for it, you see? And that just kind of holds you in abeyance, doesn't it? It doesn't let you live a full life. So let me put something on the table to you before we go into any of these marvelous lessons. Here's one first. And that is, darlings, you have one thing on the table right now, and that's to be your potential, your highest and most wonderful, loving self. That's what we're trying to get to. We're trying to leave the, put to bed, really. It's not even leave. It's energetically pull yourself out from the ego child's mind, where all the issues are, where the fear-based self is, and into the highest self, which is the love-based mind. Thank you, Vicki. She says, I have that pattern. I love it when you all do this. I always know I've got a real aware person when they say, oh my God, I do that. You know, and all of you all have done that at one time or another in these shows. I love reading your writing. It is so cute when you all say, oh my God, I've got that. It's just great. that's a real part of your healing too, you know, to not be afraid to say, hey, I got that. I'm working on that. I think that's the most admirable thing I can think of. So, so it becomes you being your best. You're getting yourself to the place of the highest self where you have new momentum there, not the momentum of defaulting back to the old ego child's spine, but you're in this new place that's love-centered and kind and good. You're making decisions because it's the right thing to do, whether they're popular or not. You have learned, which I think almost everybody needs to learn, how to present themselves in a better way, especially when we're saying no to someone. We'll talk about that in a little more detail. But it is that place where you can be assured you are going to be liked and accepted. Oh, for heaven's sakes, Vicky. Vicky said she just experienced it with her dad 5 minutes ago, but she recognized it. Oh, that's wonderful. That's great, sweetheart. As a matter of fact, that's huge that you recognized it. You bet. So many things that happen to us, we don't recognize. We just kind of accept, you know, and we don't recognize it. And the problem here comes that we cannot heal until we go, wait a minute, look at what I'm doing. Because you don't have a choice. It's a knee-jerk reaction, you see, and you don't have a choice to do it again or not. So that is a big step along the way. As I think I said 2 or 3 weeks ago, it's controversial because of who said it, Woody Allen, but he said that 80% of any success is showing up, and that's kind of the psychological way you show up, is to go, oh my God, look at what I'm doing, you're right, you know? So good for you, good for you. So here it becomes you being your authentic self in your highest self. Who's not going to like that? Darling, most everybody will. Now, there is a category that I think of that might not. If you have been self-sacrificing to the extreme, if you have absolutely just given to your detriment, the people you have given to may not turn around and say, oh, my dear, thank you for all the years you've given me and everything you've given me, and I'm so proud of you for growing up. Okay, thank you, Judy. Oh, I missed you too, darling. Thank you so much for saying that. They may not thank you for withdrawing the support in which you have given it. They may be mad, but that's their choice, you see. Everybody has a choice. I've never once seen any of these people that you have overgiven to ever turn around and say, thank you so much for everything. I get it. God bless you. Let's go into the new energy. Fine. No, they usually are mad that you're not going to continue to enable them. And darling, that's a whole nother show. Okay? It's not healthy for you to do. Now, we're pulling from several articles here. One is by it's called 5 Key Emotional Intelligence Skills by Kendra Cherry. I'm about to go into that in just a minute because it listed those in detail, some of which we have already done. I'm also pulling from an article called 10 Subtle Signs Someone Has Low Emotional Intelligence. Be aware. I should have known I wasn't being wild about this article. It is. It says good things, but it's in the way they're said that I'll read you some of that. That's not to criticize anybody else. That's just to say we do something else here. So I don't find some of these things just as helpful to us. It's by Isabel Tenorio. And there's one more, and that is 18 Signs You Have High Emotional Intelligence by Travis Bradbury. So we're going to go over all of these in just a minute. So emotional intelligence. We've talked about what that is. And again, what I'm putting on the table now for all of you is work on yourselves. This is not about reading other people. That comes after you know what motivates you, you see? Because the same things in the ego child's mind motivate us all to more or less degrees. And it's important that you concentrate on you. Why? Because ultimately you're going to stand there in your highest self, in your potential, and give people that. So this really, don't get off the beam by trying to make yourself safe, which is an issue because you are safe, by reading other people. If you all will go back and look at, I think I gave a lecture about a year and a half ago on cognitive distortions. There's been a great deal of time on that. And I can come around and give it to you again if you all have a hard time finding it. But cognitive distortions are the distortions in your thinking that you've created when you were a little kid. And one of them, is there any surprise here, is mind reading. You're thinking that somebody else is thinking something. And that's just a bloomin' insult, guys. It keeps you think. It keeps you alive when you're little. But when we're an adult, the emotional intelligent thing to do is ask somebody what they're thinking. And not assume and not either keep that as a covert secret of yours that you're holding honestly against them or yourself, but to be honest and kind and ask, what's going on? What are you thinking? I'm trying to do something else with it, so can you tell me what's going on? Is this about me, us? What's going on here? I'd like to know. But of course, the reality is you've got to want to know, because there's something else called the avoidant personality, which doesn't want to know and doesn't ask the right questions. I was talking to one of my dear clients and friends yesterday, and we were talking in her session about how she dates and how she gets in trouble with some of the people she dates. Because what happens to her is that she doesn't want to know some of these things, because she likes the beginning of being in love and in fantasy about, oh, this is the love. He's finally here. Of course, it all blows up within a few days to a month because it's not based in anything real. Guys, Kim, you're so cute. She says, I so need to hear this. Sheila, good morning. I'm so glad all of you all are with us today. Isn't this fun to be together on Sunday mornings? I just love it. I do. All right. So, what happened to my girlfriend is that she's in the avoidant pattern. She doesn't really want to know. So I said to her, let's ask some really important questions when you're dating someone. Like, what happened to your first marriage? I actually have a friend that married someone and she never asked that question. But I'm going to tell you, she knows now why his marriage broke up. Okay? So guys, ask the questions. Don't be avoidant. Nobody's the one until you and he decide that this is a thing. All right? And you're buying this package, as is he or she. And you've got to make sure that you know what you're getting. Thank you, Sheila. You understand, we have to know. So why did the marriage not work? Oh, Vicky, you're so cute. Vicky says, I feel like I'm being called out. And she's saying that's just fun and silly. You all are adorable. You're not being called out. I'm just trying to help. Let's put some things on the table that nobody's ever talked about before, shall we? And then we can get through them. But if nobody ever talks about them and they're in a subconscious area for you, come on, let's get them up and out. You know, it's like those old Westerns that I grew up with, because I'm older than you guys. But, it's like the sheriff calling the bad guy out of the saloon saying this town ain't big enough for both of us. Come on out, and that's what I feel like sometimes is I'm doing. Okay. So, so when we, going back to my friend, I just want to give you some of these words. It becomes, I don't understand, Vicki, cutting out for anybody. Oh, is the Facebook Live is cutting out? I'm so sorry, darling. I'll say again, it is our slow speed up here in the mountains. Do keep in mind, thank you, Vicki, for telling me that it's cutting in and out. Do keep in mind that, and Judy says, yes, big breaks. Actually, it's not wind today, it's just the slow speed. And more people are coming up here to the mountains and using this, I guess, on Sunday mornings. So, using the internet. I want to say to you all, hang on, and I hope you hear this, because we're very close, I think, to getting some fiber optics out here in the next few months, I hope, or in this next year. So I'm hoping that'll be better. For now, you've got Blog Talk Radio and Facebook Live, and you can kind of toggle back and forth if you have to. I'm so sorry that you have big gaps. If it was something I could do to fix it, I would. But unfortunately, the thing that's going to fix it is a major change for us and have fiber optics. No, it's nothing on your end, Vicki, but thank you so much for pointing that out. Guys, I don't know what's going on and what the trouble is that you're having technologically with this show until you tell me. So that helps. So I can make the announcement to toggle back and forth or whatever we need to say. But hang on, because we're trying to do this. You see, we're in a very remote location, and so they don't want to particularly bring fiber optics out here because there are not enough people to sustain that all year long. You understand? Thank you, Judy. Yeah, I would fix it if I could. So the problem is this is just kind of low on the totem pole. They're not going to make as much money coming here as they would be in a town or having a very dense population area. But we're trying it anyway, and everybody is seeming to agree to pay it whether they're here or not. And so we're on the last stages of possibly getting this. By the way, I love watching movies and television. I reference them from time to time. And we have a satellite thing here that gives us great pictures, great satellite for like 2 weeks. And then the last 2 weeks of every month, we have nothing because we've run out of data. Just the way it is, and to increase our data is just formidable. You would not believe what they want to charge. So anyway, this is the only choice that we've got right now, to go on and try to get the fiber optics. Okay, we learned 2 weeks ago that, and I think the week before that, if I'm not mistaken, that your overall emotional intelligence is comprised of 5 factors. We talked about self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation. We are now going to be talking about empathy and social skills. I'm going to go back and give you a little overview of what we talked about with those things. But keep in mind that the reason that we're talking about this at all is that emotional intelligence affects every aspect of your life, from your how you handle your emotions to how you relate with yourself and others. My problem with Isabel, was that her name? Isabel Tenorio's article is that she makes it about other people. Now, this is just how she wrote it, and that's just fine. But you've got to understand that this is really not about other people. Emotional intelligence is about you, and you. Otherwise, we get very judgmental. We say, oh, those people don't have emotional intelligence. They're not as aware as I am. And we've got narcissism, right? We don't want to do that. This is about how great can you be? How great can you be? What is your potential? Let's play in that arena and keep it going and keep expanding it and keep it deepening. Wouldn't that be wonderful? That's really what this is about, isn't it? That's what consciousness is. So this is not about other people, manipulating other people, how to learn how to manipulate other people in a better way. This is about you being your best. You get a completely different result when you are that best self. And what I have taught a lot of my students is that you can change into that best self in 2 seconds once you realize what you're doing. Once you are in tune and hear something come out of your mouth, you go, wait a minute, hang on. And you get in your best self and you certainly have a different result. But it's because of what you are doing, of who you are all of a sudden. You see? The selfish motivations that we're all capable of as human beings go away in the higher self. They just do. It's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. You don't have the selfishness. You have the right thing to do for yourself and hopefully the others. I say hopefully for others. It's always in their best interest too. But they have a choice about whether they recognize that's in their best interest or not. And they have their choice. That's just the way it is. We can't control another, you see, and the way they think. We shouldn't, because you wouldn't want yourself being controlled that way. And yet we all try to do it from time to time in the ego child's mind, you see. Okay, so looking back on what we have, Toffle, darling, hey! We have baby squirrels on the porch, by the way. And that's just too exciting for my little poodle. All right. So we studied in the last couple of, not in the last couple of weeks, but before that. Okay. We studied self-awareness. Self-awareness is the ability to recognize and understand understand your own emotions, and is certainly one of the critical components of this. All right. We studied self-regulation. Guys, I'm hurrying through these things because they're on Blog Talk Radio, they're on YouTube, and they're on Facebook Live as archive shows. So look 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now, 3 weeks ago and 4 weeks ago, and you'll get the first part of these lectures. So the second one was self-regulation. And that is the ability to regulate and manage your emotions. You know, we've all known people that don't do that very well. Okay, we'll talk more about this in a minute. The third one was social skills. Being able to interact well with others is another a very strong component of emotional intelligence. We talked about why that people can't do that. A lot of times it's because they have not become their own authority. And I told a story, and I think it bears repeating before we go into the new information. A lot of times when I have gone in and worked with corporations, and I'll always ask the CEO, are you friends? Or the managers of the departments, are you friends with the people you work with? And they all say, oh, no, I have to maintain my authority. Guys, that's a false authority. That's a false authority. I always know when somebody answers like that they feel threatened. You understand the fear-based experience here, right? That's not the true authority, because in your potential, my darlings, you all are the authority, you know? And I think I've told you the story about being at one of the large corporations. We were in a huge hotel ballroom. I don't know how many people were there. Gosh, I don't know, maybe 1,000, 500 to 1,000. And I chose two people. One was a small little Chinese girl who could kick ass and take names. And the other one was a great big guy who was who looked real strong but was a pussycat, and you could push him around. I put these people in front of the room, and I said, okay, here's the scenario. Everybody in here has made an appointment at this very exclusive club. You're going to ask your loved one to marry you. This is the biggest night of your life. You've planned it for 3 months, okay? And you get to this restaurant, and they don't have your reservation. Nothing. And they can't seat you. And I made the whole group stand up in a single file line that snaked around the room, and I said, okay, come up and complain to one of these people. Now, you're not going to really complain, but who would you go to? And with about 6 people went to the Chinese girl. Everybody else went to the big guy. Why? Because the ego child's mind wants you to be upset with him. It's not about solutions necessarily. It's about blowing off steam, you see. Getting everybody upset too. And if they're upset enough, maybe they'll do something. But this is the woman that would have said yes or no, or could have fixed it one way or another. And that's why these 6 people went to her. Isn't that interesting? This authority that is in you. And by the way, darling, while I'm a guide to that authority, which is also called the highest self, you were born with it. But what you've got layered over it are these childhood issues, like trying to mind read somebody else or taking something personally instead of being your own authority. If something's wrong, it's really a more simple way to live, too, because if something's wrong, go ask and say, what's going on here? I don't understand this. Can you tell me what's going on? I'm trying to take it into the realm of you not liking me, and I know that's not true, so what in the world is going on here? And be ready for whatever the answer is. Usually the answer has nothing to do with you at all. So it becomes very important, guys. It does. To be this authority that you are, you see. To ask the right questions, like my friend that was out on dates. What happened to your first marriage, or your second or third or fourth? Or why haven't you ever been married before? What's going on there? All right? What do you like to do? What do you not like to do? What's the worst thing that you have a problem with? What do you get mad about? I want to know those things. And so should you. Even if I never see this person again. No, I'm married outright, but when I was dating, because I've only been married going on 11 years now to a sweet, dear man. But darlings, before that, and I was in the dating pool, I want to say you want to know these things. You don't want to go in going, oh my God, I hope he's the one. I hope he's the one. So I don't want to see him if he's not. That's going to get you in trouble. You got to be able to see everything. This is your emotional honesty, isn't it? The emotional honesty, again, starts with you. Don't lie to yourself. Find out everything you need to find out. And you can do it in the nicest way. You're not challenging him. It may sound like I'm doing that, but I'm really adamant about you asking these questions, so don't misunderstand me. Okay. So I want to take you into a discussion of empathy right now. And this is Kendra Cherry's article. You to understand how others are feeling. And it's absolutely critical to emotional intelligence. Now, some of you even go beyond that, and you're empaths. I know I certainly am. Now, I mean, on picking up what you don't want to know about yourself, so we can live. Now we're back. Guys, we just lost Facebook Live. Now we're back. I'm so sorry about that. It just happens from time to time. So do know that's what Facebook Live is for too. I mean, that's what Blog Talk Radio is for as well. Empathy. Some of you actually are empaths. And I want to tell you something about being an empath that none of the articles say, okay? When you're an empath and you're picking up everything and it's a hard life for you because you're so empathetic, you actually have to do a lot more work on yourself to deepen your consciousness because you're not knowing where your energy ends and another begins. And if you will get rid of these issues that cause you to over-relate, if you move beyond them and do work on yourself, ultimately you're going to find that in your 2-hour sessions, I'm speaking for me, in your 2-hour sessions you pick up everything you're supposed to, okay? But you don't over-relate. You can get up from your desk and go, okay, it's done. I mean, I've done what I need to do, and you don't take it with you. You're taking it with you because of your issues. You understand? Because issues that you must look at and need to get rid of. An over-identification, an over-definition, a definition of yourself that's not healthy. Okay? Vows you might have made, like, I'll never feel that again. I'll never feel love again. I don't want to feel that way when it doesn't work out. We've got to find out what's blocking you from your potential, from your highest self, from this authority. That's all we're doing, is we're finding out what that is. We're talking about it. I'm doing some energy work on you. Eventually it goes away. And it gets a lot better along the way until it goes away. Okay? How does it go away? It goes away because the energy goes out of it. You see, one of the reasons you follow your issues and you have knee-jerk reactions is because there's a lot of energy still held there. Psychiatry and psychology calls that fixations. Well, they never tell you what's fixated. Well, I'm telling you now, it's your energy that's fixated there. That's why it's so blooming important and why it's compelling you to do the same thing over and over again. It's your energy, all right? So suppose each week we take something off of you. Okay, so you don't have any energy left in that anymore. And I present a whole lot of other choices that you can make that are in your highest self, that are totally compatible with that. Don't you see how this works? It's the most amazing thing in the world. So we simply have to take the energy away from one. You'll have the memory of what happened, absolutely. You just will find it boring. Why don't we find it boring? You ready? Because we like telling our story. We tell it over and over and over again. Why do we do that? Because we're trying to work it out and get to this place of freedom, but we're not there yet. So while we need to hear everything, we do need to hear everything. We need to hear everything. We need to reframe it. We need to put it into a more powerful context for you so you understand your psychology. And then at one point we say, got to stop telling the story. You know everything there is to know. Now it's about getting on with it, isn't it? And isn't that a joy? Isn't that a privilege? Okay. So I wanted to put that on the table about empaths because everybody says, oh, it's such a trial to be an empath. The fact is, if you're born with that, you could easily do what I do if you develop yourself to do it. That's all there is. Good. It's a marvelous tool to have. I mean, it's where real compassion lies in you, but not to your detriment. We tend to dramatize it until we get to a place where we can just use it and turn it off and use it and turn it off. Okay. empathy. It involves more than just being able to recognize the emotional states of others. It really involves recognizing your own emotional states. But what happens when you come from a home that has had so much emotion in it that you've turned yours off, or has so little emotion in it, they've trained you to not have it? There isn't anybody I've ever found that doesn't suppress some emotion. It may be that you're frightened about being angry. Well, I want to tell you that anger is a really healthy emotion to have when somebody pisses you off. I'm not going to leave you there. I'm not going to say, stay an angry person. No, I'm saying that a flash of anger that you understand, that you acknowledge, that you understand, and that you can trace back and say, what am I so pissed off about? Because I'm overreacting, is a really important part of your healing. Just like Vicki said earlier, all of a sudden she said, I saw what I was doing. Wow, that's marvelous. It's marvelous. I saw why I was feeling the way I was. That's marvelous. Then we take that and we do some work with it. And all of a sudden the energy goes out of it. You see? That's the way our program works. Okay. Empathy also has to do with, as I said, your relationship to yourself. I know a lot of people that are not empathetic to themselves. They're not kind to themselves. I remember years ago that I was like that as well. You take care of your little dog's hurt paw before you take care of yourself. We have to wake up to that. We have to not be afraid of our mental processes, whether we think we're smart or dumb, our emotional processes, and all the emotions that are contained in that body. Our physical selves, we have to make our peace with. Our spiritual selves, we have to understand what we really believe ultimately through the years. That deepens and grows as well. So, emotionally, I think it's really important to have a fluidity about emotion. That's why I always say, go on and get on the internet, look up emotion, get a list of emotions, realizing that I haven't ever seen a list like this. There may be something, but everything has two headings. One is a love heading, one is a fear heading. All the other emotions are underneath that. Some of the emotions are under both. Okay? You can have a high and low version of that emotion. Okay? For example, if you, let me see, what word would I use? If I were going to say, this is a state of being, thinking of yourself. You can think of yourself in the ego child's mind. You're a selfish thing, okay? Y'all want it for yourself. It's all about being selfish. Or you can think of yourself in the higher mind, which is all about it's the right thing to do. You've got to make sure you're all right before you can be of service to others. You understand? So some of them fall under both. It's a great exercise for you to look at that, and for you in your moments in your day to take that list up and say, what am I really feeling here? Now, we're all knowing when we're really pissed and really angry at something, right? We can say, I'm angry. But anger is composed of a lot of little pieces: annoyance, frustration, irritation, suppressed emotion, suppressed rage, overt rage. What's it made of? See, it's not good enough to say I'm fearful. It's not good enough to say I'm angry. You got to find all the pieces. You got to be in touch with that. That's your emotional fluidity. That's your emotional language. And it's going to serve you real well to be able to speak it, you see. Moving past that, empathy also involves your responses to people based on any kind of information you're getting. What's your response when you feel somebody is sad or hopeless? Do you even notice that they're feeling sad or hopeless? You might treat them with extra care or concern, she says. You might try to buoy their spirits. I remember a very dear man that came to me who had, he was in the autistic spectrum. He was very functional. And I was losing a dear friend of mine. I told this the other week. And she was like a second mother to me. So this was important, right, to me. And I was helping her son, who had never been through the death process before, and this was very emotional to him. And so I told my client, I said, I'm so sorry. I don't answer phone calls, by the way, during your session. But I had these 2 hours, and, you know, I wanted him to know that if the phone call came in, I had to answer it if I saw it was from him, her son. And so he agreed, of course, and we went on. And I did have to answer the phone call, and it was highly emotional. And I said, excuse me, I'm so sorry. Let's get back to this. And he said, instead of saying a word about what I had just been through, he said, do you think this woman would be right for me? I found her on whatever the dating site is, and he held up a picture. And I let it go. But when I felt like he could handle it, I circled it back around to that moment, and I said, darling, do you realize that was an inappropriate reaction? And he was so honest. He was wonderful. He said, I was afraid of what you would make me feel. Yeah, I knew that was true. Okay? But we have to be willing to do that. We have to learn to be willing to feel what another feels. I mean, that's intimacy, isn't it? Intimacy is not just taking off our clothes and going to bed with someone. It's actually being able to feel what another feels, or share with them what we're feeling, even if they can't, go there. So, anyway. So, being empathetic also allows you to understand the dynamics that influence a relationship. You become sensitive to the energy changing in a room. You don't have to do anything about this, nor does it have to affect you negatively. You're just simply observe, right? It gives you the ability to know when to speak or when to just keep quiet. We don't have to always say something back. We can just say, no, I'm sorry. People build empathy in various ways. So let's talk about that, because if you are empathetic and yet you're prone to drama, I cannot tell you enough how we've got to get rid of that drama, okay? It's going to bite you on the butt every time. I'm telling you. It's got to go. And it's dissipating a lot of your energy if you're a drama queen. And I say that whether you're male or female, by the way. It's dissipating a lot of your energy that is really about you focusing and creating the life you want. That's another use of energy that's not going to bring you anything. It's a junk bond. But sometimes we get very dramatic about empathy. And we say, oh, we can't, we're too sensitive to pick up, to be out in the world because, we pick up everything. You've got to get beyond that. You simply have to. Now, can you? Of course you can, because I used to do that. When I was about 19 or 20 years old, or 21, I guess, I started going to New York. I started working in New York a little bit, living there part-time. And it's interesting. This may sound silly to some of you, but New York doesn't have anything to absorb energy, right? So, except that little strip of Central Park, which I was not near. But what happens is energies just bounce off the concrete there and bounce off the buildings. And I got to the point, this was, how many years ago now? 40, 50 years ago. It got to the point that I would just pick up everything. Somebody walking down the street, I'd walk into a small group of friends. It was too much. So I realized that environment just was not good for me. But it wasn't the environment that was wrong for me. It was just wrong for me at the time, because what I had not done was developed myself to the point where that didn't bother me anymore. And I could do it at will and turn it off at will. That only comes in your advanced stages, guys, of your work on yourself. Okay? When you're not over-relating to fear. You see? Fear-based experiences. So, how to build empathy is certainly be willing to share your own feelings, but first you have to know what they are. So, get that sheet. Start working with that sheet. Acknowledge how you feel in the quiet moments as well as the great big moments. Break them down into little words, not just one big word. I also want to just give you a word of advice. Some people can only take a little bit of you. They can't take all of you. And why isn't that all right? It is all right, sweetheart. Unless you have an issue that says you have to be liked by everybody, and that's an issue, as I said. So this has got to be, you have to be aware of the people you're talking to, This is the art of communication, isn't it? It's also empathy. Empathy is a big component to the art of communication, which is knowing what they can take, you see? I don't move in and tell everybody what I do. In fact, I've got some very good friends I've known for many years who have not a clue about what you and I do on Sunday mornings. They love me. I love them. It's just fine. They can only take that part of me that talks over at dinner parties and about the world situation and, that kind of thing. Nice and neat, ties it up. They don't want to know this. That's okay. That's all right. But the really, 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 really close friends of yours are the ones that can take all of you and appreciate all of you. And you, in turn, appreciate that for them, because energy is an exchange or you don't have a full relationship, right? So that's a real special relationship that one must nurture when you find somebody like that. Her next point is engage in a cause, such as a community project. You can join an organization. Now, some of us are joiners and some of us are not. I'm an introvert. Everybody goes, what? You're an introvert? Yes, I'm a big introvert. But introverts get energy from being alone. Extroverts get energy from being with people. And there is a very big misunderstanding about introverts. And if you've gone, you're an introvert, you're in that misunderstanding. And here it is. Introverts just renew by being alone. That doesn't mean we're not out there in the middle of everything. And if you're not out there in the middle of everything, we need to look at some other issues, because you're supposed to be a participant in your life. You understand? Nobody gets to be a pure introvert or pure extrovert. Pure extroverts need to be self-analyzing too. Okay? So this whole black and white thinking about introverts and extroverts, it's just the way if they get energy. It doesn't mean that they are not supposed to do everything, because you are. Okay? All right. Needless to say, I love my friends. I certainly plan things. I will get with them. But being on a community project or something like that is very painful for me. I don't enjoy doing that. I'll help with a specific thing, but I don't want to be in a community project and try to plan it out. That I don't want to do that. I'd rather be at my desk writing. Also, how to build empathy is really listening to other people. Do you know somebody that cuts you off and tries to fix the problem before you've gotten to the end of your sentence? I see that a lot. I've worked with a lot of those people. I remember one woman who was the head of a department. She was very well liked, but often misunderstood because she was so busy and she was very, very cerebral. So people would walk into her office, right, and they would try to talk about a problem that they were having, and she'd leap immediately to fixing it and cut them off. That's just blooming not nice. It is very important for us to sit there and listen to everybody say the end of their sentence. Everybody has a right to be heard. As a matter of fact, you know, the number one issue for people when in business, this was a number of years ago. I want to say it was maybe even 20 or 25 years ago. They did the number one issue in business and in personal life was that they didn't feel heard. So you can do people a great honor by letting them finish a sentence. The interesting thing, I grant you, is there's some people that don't finish sentences. They just go on and on and on and on and on and on, right? And certainly you're not required to sit there and listen to all that. So insert yourself here or there, state your boundaries, and go on, okay? But do listen. Really important. Another one is to talk. She says, okay, I'm going to skip that one. Talk to new people. Oh, yeah, talk to new people. You know, I keep saying this to you. I'm a great admirer of Pat Conroy, who was a marvelous writer and really in touch with his emotions. I think he himself was a feeler reasoner. And he was a great guy. And he would aggravate people to death coming through the line to get autographs on his books, because he would always stop them and say, tell me a story. Tell me a story. And in fact, his wife, Cassandra, wrote a biography of him and her life with him, and it is called Tell Me a Story, because he was so famous for that. I think that's one of the nicest things in the world, and I find myself adopting that. Tell me a story. Tell me about you. What do you think's interesting? Tell me a story about you. When I just put it on the table like that, what do you think of? I love stories like that. The next point that she makes is to try to imagine yourself in someone else's shoes. We are all one. It is the ego child's mind. The ego child's mind thinks it's separate and unique, and it's the only one going through anything like this. And guys, this is just not true. So you're leaving the ego child's mind when you do this work, ultimately, and you're moving into the higher mind, certainly. And that's where all of our emotions are just arranged in different ways. But we all are motivated by the same things. Unless we have had distortions, cognitive distortions, that we've learned in our childhoods, you see? I think it's extremely important to, do this work. Go from one mind to the other. Okay. The fifth point here that we need to talk about is motivation. Intrinsic motivation being another really important part of emotional intelligence. They're motivated by things beyond external rewards like fame, money, recognition, and acclaim. You can, I happen to think that just about everybody, to more or less degrees, we're all narcissists in the ego child's mind. Everybody is. Everybody is. We might as well admit it and challenge those things, in ourselves. One thing should motivate us in emotional intelligence, and I'm using that in this sentence synonymous with the highest self. It's only part of the highest self. And that is, we do something because it's the right thing to do, because we're compelled to do it. It's the right thing to do. It's in pure cooperation with who we are at our best. She goes on to say here in this article that people that have good motivation for the right reasons have a passion to fulfill their own inner needs and goals. I'll venture a step further and say, and to express who they really are. Whether you're expressing it on the page or on the canvas or in the way you decorate your house or the way you plan your garden. Everything is an expression of you. And it's a mistake not to express you. But before you can express you and know who you are, you've got to contact that emotional fluidity and find out who you really are. And then you've got something to really put on the walls, really offer as the expression of self. I think it's very exciting to express the self. These people that are high in this seek internal rewards, experience flow from being totally in tune with an activity, pursue a peak experience. This is called the flow state in creativity. You'll hear violinists talking about the flow state, the musicians, artists, well, talking about the flow state, writing the flow state. It's also called the zone. If you are talking about physical activity like football, are you in the zone or not? We're talking about the peak performance state. I think here we might look back at an old construct of mine, and here's the construct, all right? There are two of them. One is the ego child's mind construct. The bottom, and you might want to write this down, the bottom word is fear. When you crank that energy up, you get high energy. That's not optimal energy, by the way. You just get high energy with all the nerves and anxiety and everything else in that. You crank that up and you get reactive energy. Reactive energy is where you react. You don't think. I remember a dear teacher that I was training at one point got called on being in just high energy, not the better energy that I'm going to tell you about in just a minute. And she knew, she started being picked on, and she knew if she was going to raise her energy to get the room back, that she was going to burst into tears. So she just had to stand there and take it. The next week, we trained her in a different paradigm, and here is that. Love, okay, your best self, which is based in that. When you crank up the energy from that, you get peak performance energy, and that is a high energy with all the nerves and anxiety removed. It's you at your best. And then you crank that up and you get potential energy. And that's great. How much of your potential can you achieve here if you crank the energy up there? In other words, for example, if I am going in to give a lecture and I am hoping for and I'm just speaking as an actor or a lecture or a theater show, and I am expecting to be the very best I can be. I'm going to come in with potential energy. I'm going to come in having all of that I'm capable of. When I'm talking to you, by the way, I'm talking to you with everything that I have. I try to be in this state when we're talking. Guys, there is, I think it's finally up. My darling Vicky was kind enough to do this. She went on and bought one of my DVDs that I referred to, downloaded it. It's called the It series. The It series tells you exactly how to do this that I'm talking about right now, how to be it. I called it the It series because when I was in show business, all the agents would say, Martha, send me somebody with it. And I would have fun with it. And I'd say, what is it? What is it? They all say, I don't know what it is, but I know it when I see it. Okay. Well, it is what we're talking about right now. Are you coming with everything you've got or not? Everything you've got. So that DVD series, that download, is going to exactly tell you what to do. It's going to explain energy in minute detail. And that's what we're talking about here when we're talking about peak experience. This is the best of you. Now, can you achieve that without and still have issues? Absolutely you can. I created it when I still had a lot of them. But I knew what I was doing. I knew to put them aside and go into this. It gets easier and easier and easier the clearer you get, but I'm going to tell you that. And then you can just go into it anytime you want. Right now, you're going to need to prepare. Okay? And that tells you how to do it all. Those people who are competent in the motivation arena that we're talking about right now aren't afraid of taking action. Many people are. Many people are afraid of taking action or of doing something by themselves. And that isn't about this. That is an issue about being dependent on others. We've got to get that because you need to rely on you. You need to be in that space where you're hearing what you need to do next, and when you feel very strong about it, and that you have the courage to do it. We've got to get you there. That's certainly the highest self. Okay? People that are good at this set goals. They embrace achievement. You know, achievement makes them inwardly feel good. It's not something they're chasing after out there. They're actually always looking for ways to, in my vocabulary with what I do for a living, go faster, deeper, better. I want to give you that when I'm doing radio shows or certainly in sessions. I want to go faster, deeper, better. I'm always open to that for Spirit to tell me how to do that. They tend to be very good at being committed and taking initiative, as we said. Okay. So, how to improve motivation? Try to call yourself on needing extrinsic rewards outside yourself. You see, a lot of times we do things in order to feel more valuable because we don't feel valuable. So if other people can say, oh, you're such a hard worker, or are you doing this really well? That's real important. But as one of my dear, dear friends said, who is no longer with me, he was a great mentor to me in the theater and film. And he said to me, Martha, if you believe the good reviews, you got to believe the bad reviews as well. So anybody's reviews, what he was saying to me, don't matter. It's your own reviews that matter. And you need to look at them, at what you're doing honestly, and not blow it out of proportion, and certainly not diminish it out of proportion, but just look at everything very realistically. There's someone else that I think of too, that is a man I know who is very, very ill. He has cancer. And everything he says, every single thing he says, whether he likes you or doesn't like you, whether he likes a methodology or doesn't like a methodology, has to do with one thing. You know what it is? Whether it gives him a lot of attention. It's a problem if he's going to get on the other side of his cancer diagnosis. Because what he craves is attention from everybody else, but not from himself. He's not going to grow up here, you see? Guys, you may not think some of the things that we're talking about are very big problems, but you wait until you get older and life happens and things happen in the world. I hope this will never happen to you. However, what I want to say is, all of a sudden these things become critical problems when they're tied to something serious. We all have the advantage of working on these things early in our lives, before the critical happens, if the critical is ever going to happen. So I want you to take me seriously about that, because now's the time to work on it, okay? Another way to improve motivation is something we said to begin with. Celebrate. Celebrate your results of whatever. Pat yourselves on the back and say, I did good. I had a good writing day today. I had a good this. I had a good that. Real proud of myself. It's going to change tomorrow, by the way. We're going to make it better then, okay? But give yourself what's true. Many people don't do that. Many people only emphasize what's wrong and never what they've done well. And that's not the key to happiness, guys. Next, focus on setting small, measurable goals. We get locked up. We really, truly get locked up when you think all the way down the pike. You know, it's like it freezes you up. There's too much to do. You never get started. You have one thing to do today, and it's whatever the next step is, however small. Whether it's to consider this healing, or to try to implement gratitude when we get off every moment of this one day. Whatever it is, keep it measurable and small. Keep it just about now. Tomorrow it'll be about something else. And that's how to accomplish things, you see. Because if we run ahead and say, I'm going to write the great American novel, well, are you? I mean, where's the first page? Where's the idea? It doesn't come in that. Observe right now. Honor right now. It won't ever come again as it exists right now. It's a sacred moment. Every moment is. But we don't see that until we are down the road a little bit past some issues. Say, life is just one slogging thing to get through after another. Really? Maybe it's a privilege. Her next point, introduce challenges to keep things interesting. Oh boy, do I believe in that. Introduce challenges to keep things interesting. See, this isn't about you doing everything well. It's just about, let's try it. Let's try it. The theater taught me that too, because when you're young and a bit, what do I want to say, manipulative, the agent will call you and say, there's a part that I'd like to send you for, but can you tap dance? And you say, yeah, sure, yeah. And you run out real fast and learn to tap dance, however badly. But it's interesting because as a life thing, it teaches you to keep expanding. You don't get to sit there and just be who you are and never learn anything. It's constantly challenging you to learn something else. And I can't tell you enough how marvelous that is for you, no matter what age you are. Go learn Italian, go learn to tap dance. Go learn to do an improvisation class. Go get the Artist's Way and start doing morning pages every morning. You're not there to do anything but expand yourself. You're not there to write the great American novel, to paint the great American picture, you're just there to go to another level of you. Open another channel of your mind. Have fun. Reinvention of self is good for you. And one of the ways you do that is to learn new things. Think new thoughts. The next thing she recommends is to set goals to help build intrinsic motivation. I think that it's marvelous to do that. I love writing because I'll have a story to tell. And I can't wait to get back to the computer to write the next part of the story so I can share it with you. That becomes really important to me. I'm so sorry. Toffle, please be quiet. Squirrels. I feel like that, what was that show where, it was the squirrel that went, nut! My dog about squirrels. So, why do I want to tell that story? Because the story is in me. I've got to tell it, I want to share it. Not because of the Pulitzer. You understand? Michael, can you get him quiet, please? Toffle! Michael, sweetheart, would you pick him up, please? Excuse me. Sorry about that. Yeah, he's very excited right now. Something's on the porch. We do have lots of things on the porch right now. A lot of things are being born around here, like raccoons and... Thank you. Nice and quiet. No, well, not yet. All right, going on. They also suggest to improve motivation, working with a friend or a co-worker to find accountability. What does that mean? Work with a friend or co-worker to find accountability. I think that's really good. You may need that. And certainly if you are more of an extrovert, even if you're an introvert, I think that might be good. And I'll tell you the story for me. So I love to write, but I have a secret weapon here. You know what my secret weapon is? And I'm sorry about the dog still barking. Can't help it. The secret weapon I've got is my cousin Laura. My cousin Laura. She is marvelous. So many people... Shelley says her dog Bentley is barking back at my dog. You know what's so funny is I think so many of us on shows like this really love our dogs and cats and birds and everything else we've got. So thank you for understanding, and I hope it doesn't get too distracting. I do think that sometimes it's a marvelous way for us to concentrate a little more when something like that's going on. My cousin Laura likes to read what I'm writing by episodes, So I may finish 5 chapters this week. She wants those. She doesn't want to read the whole book together. She will when it's done. But y'all are so cute. So Kim, your dog Riley is carrying on too. I love this. This is just darling. We have, the dogs are all talking about consciousness and emotional intelligence. I love it. By the way, if you all want to send any pictures of your dogs listening to the radio show or barking at the radio show. I think that's fun. We'll mount them, okay? Just send them to me at martha@marthanovak.com. So Laura wants to read sections. My editor in New York only wants to read the book as a whole and see how things strike her, right? But my cousin Laura wants to read them in increments. Her incredible interest in what happens next to these characters motivates me. It's really fun because I can, it makes me be accountable. It makes me take the little time that I might ordinarily spend goofing off. It gives me an accountability. I've really got to go to the computer and finish writing this and have somebody to share it with who says, get to work, and it's a marvelous thing. So I understand their connections to squirrels. Yeah, that's the language, right? Loving squirrels. Okay, so there's an example certainly of finding someone who cares about you or cares about what you're producing to make you accountable. The problem also comes when I see some people validating each other's issues. So be aware that you don't want somebody to validate your issues. You want someone who validates your journey beyond the issues and your highest self-mind. So I hope all of you all will find that in your lives. Bring that in if you haven't yet. She goes on to talk about why emotional intelligence skills are so important. You're able to handle the most awkward social situations in the world with grace. This is about handling things with grace, not having bad things, not having things not happen to you. That's a weird way of saying that. I'll give you an example. I remember being at a country club where I was giving a big lecture to somebody. And you had to go down some stairs where they had coffee and tea set up for a break, right? So I went down this long flight of stairs. And down there in another room was a high school friend of mine. And he came out to get a cup of coffee at the same time I came down to get that cup of coffee. And we were talking and having a wonderful time. And I turned around to go back up the stairs after saying goodbye and fell flat on my face. Now, I had just told him that I was there to teach peak performance, right? So it was like, wow, okay. And it was really interesting because I was certainly in that mode. And so, I made a joke about it and said, well, that was embarrassing, and just said what was true and got up and moved on. We are good friends, and all my high school class and I are good friends. I came from a very small class, and I said something to him about 5 years ago about that, and he didn't remember it. Of course, I remember it, but he doesn't remember it. If I made a big deal of it and I was dramatic about it, and he might have remembered it, but you see. I can give you tons of examples like this. I also remember, and I think I did tell you this story before, but it bears a shortened version. I was in a show where I had to change real fast into a strapless evening gown. So when you are changing real fast into things, you can't wear the underwear that you would normally wear, the bra, because you've got to be ready to go. So I didn't have a bra on. They changed me into this off stage. I had like a 2-second, 3-second change. Go right back on the stage. I'm carrying a stool behind a screen, and I'm supposed to get up on the stool so I can be seen over the screen because I'm small, and go, voila! Okay, I'm playing Anna Hill, I think, in Tintypes. And what I didn't know, because I had never practiced with the stool before, or the dress. They were given to me like the very day I was opening, right? Is I was standing on the dress. So I went, voila, and the whole dress fell down to my waist. Now, darlings, I am no Cindy Crawford. I'm no great beauty physically. I'm small, and I've always been a little overweight. And ordinarily, if you talk about me appearing topless in front of anybody, I would have just died. But because I was in the highest self, this self that is full of grace, I looked down and I saw what had happened. The whole audience was out of their chairs laughing so hard. And I just said, oops, and pulled it up and waited for everybody to stop laughing, and then went, voila, that brought down the house again too. What I'm saying, and you all may not hear this in me, but that ordinarily would have been something that I couldn't handle. I would have been highly embarrassed about something like that. But when you're in peak performance mode, when you're in an emotionally intelligent place, you handle everything with grace. I can give you tons of examples. There was a man I remember in one of my open enrollment seminars who sat there with his arms crossed and said, "This is all bullshit." And he said it just like that. And because I was in the emotionally intelligent place, I said something that was true. And I said, then we're going to have more fun with you than anybody, because we're going to show you that this is all true. And he turned out to be one of our best friends. So, and a dear, dear, dear place. Guys, there's nothing that's going to stop you from handling any kind of weird situation with grace if you're in this place of your higher mind, of which emotional intelligence is a part. She goes on to say, emotional intelligence allows you to be a more effective leader. Absolutely. You think out of the box. You think the big picture. You don't just think about yourself. I remember a woman that I coached who was a smoker, and she had to institute for her big company a no smoking policy, which she was just pissed off about, because they were going to make her walk way across the parking lot and stand in a designated area to smoke. All right. And she was just furious when she came in to me, and I had to coach her and say, well, let's talk about the larger picture. Should you be smoking? Should you, would you like to quit? All of those things were true. She didn't think smoking was healthy. She would have liked to have quit. So I said, so this might be a good thing for everybody. Let's realize that this could be a real privilege. It changed her whole way, ultimately, and it wasn't that easy. I spent 2 or 3 hours on this. Of looking at it, and by the end of our session, she was ready to give a good speech to the rest of the company, who was going to probably be pissed off about it, but she was presenting it in a very positive way, you see. This woman goes on to say, the writer, understanding how others are feeling allows you to communicate with them better. Absolutely. I do want to put something on the table, though. As a coach, I often am involved in helping you present yourself.
90 seconds.
And so sometimes it really does take some coaching to know how to present yourself well to your partner, to a business associate, to a group of people. Guys, I'm going to stop right there. We're going to obviously do another one of these next week, and we'll finish this up, okay? But thank you so much for listening. Guys, you can really do me a favor, if you will, by telling people about the show. I appreciate it with all my heart. I am delighted to do these shows and have you good friends on board. It means a lot to me. I want to say thank you so much for listening, and I'm praying for you as soon as we get off, that whatever you have heard from this show that you think you need to do, that you will have the courage and fortification to do it. Okay? I love you too, Shelley and Becky. Thank you so much for everything. I'm just delighted to be with you today. So next week, be here, be square. Yes! Michelle, isn't that wonderful? She said, I feel like I'm growing. How exciting. It is. It's the most marvelous journey you'll ever go on. I promise, with all my heart, I say
10
that.
seconds.
All right, guys, 10 seconds. God bless you. Have a good one. Thanks for getting the word around about us. Appreciate it with all my heart. Take care. See you next week.